Tampa man is on the mend after a terrifying encounter in the water.
What would you do if a 3-meter-long alligator was charging right at you?
Well, nobody swims head-on to an alligator.
Well, this was the case for a man in Florida who ended up fighting the alligator and swimming across the river in order to survive. What starts out as an ordinary businessman wanting to shoot an ad for his company's upcoming event soon turns into his worst nightmare. All seemed calm until he was face to face with a creature he never expected to see in those waters. Join us as we unravel the events that led to such a dangerous encounter. How it all began. On August 3rd, 2022, in Old Smart, Florida, Juan Carlos, a 34-year-old go-getter, woke up in the midst of lush greenery. He was buzzing with excitement because he had a killer idea for a promo video for his company, FitX. Now, FitX isn't your run-of-the-mill company. They're all about getting people outdoors, having fun, and lending a helping hand to charities. Juan Carlos had big plans that day. He wanted to drum up some serious hype for an upcoming sports event and get folks psyched to join in on the action. But here's where things take a crazy turn. In an interview later on, Juan Carlos revealed that nothing had gone according to plan. On that sunny August day, Juan and his assistant cameraman Mete headed out to Lake Tonotosasa near Tampa. Their mission was to capture some epic shots with a drone. When they got there, they wasted no time in finding the perfect spot to set up. The weather couldn't have been better. Clear skies, gentle breeze, and the lake as calm as can be. It was the ideal setup for filming Juan's promotional video. Around 2 in the afternoon, with Mete strategically positioned a distance away, he launched the drone up high. It was just the two of them, no support crew or anyone else around. Juan Carlos took the plunge into the water and started swimming while the drone continued snapping away and capturing every moment of the action. What Carlos didn't know during this time was that trouble in its most dangerous form was lurking underneath the water all along. First signs of danger. Once Juan had swum about 350 meters away, Mete noticed something unusual on the remote control screen. His heart sank as he realized what was happening. A massive alligator was rapidly closing in on his colleague. Panic set in as he grasped the gravity of the situation. Little did he know this alligator was no ordinary creature. It was a behemoth. If you don't already know, these species are incredibly huge compared to normal-sized alligators. This one was measuring about 3.5 meters long, and it was charging straight towards Juan. To make matters worse, Juan had made a critical error that day. He had left behind his goggles and swimming cap, which were essential gear that could have potentially helped him fend off the attack. Without a clear vision of what lay ahead, the predator swiftly closed in on Juan, and within moments, the beast collided with him, engulfing his head in its massive jaws. The first bite hit Juan Carlos like a ton of bricks. He didn't realize what was happening until he felt the alligator's sharp teeth digging into his skin along with the rough texture of its scales. At that moment, he knew he was in serious trouble. His gut reaction was to fight back, but he quickly realized he was facing an uphill battle when the first attack hit. The alligator overpowers Carlos. With just one swift and vicious bite, the alligator threw a massive blow to Juan's head and his chest. Looking back on it later in the hospital, Juan said he could feel those alligator teeth sinking in, and he knew it right away. That feeling is something he never wants anybody else to experience. He remembers feeling his upper chest inside its mouth, even though the attack happened so fast. It was definitely a terrifying moment for Juan as he felt the impact of its sharp teeth on his body. But amidst the chaos, he heard a sickening snap, the sound of his own jaw cracking. Thanks to the rush of adrenaline, Juan didn't feel much at the time and wasn't fully aware of what was happening to his body. So when Carlos heard the loud pop coming from the alligator, his instincts kicked into high gear. In a desperate move, he grabbed onto the alligator's upper and lower jaws with his bare hands. It was like he suddenly had superhuman strength. According to Carlos himself, it was as if God had given him a boost, because nothing else could explain where he could get the unknown burst of energy from. But then things took an even more terrifying turn. A miracle comes out of nowhere. The alligator attempted to pull off its infamous death spin, and Carlos ended up rolling 360 degrees in the water. The man wasn't just floating in the water, though, he was fully locked in a fierce struggle. Miraculously, during all this chaos, Juan managed to break free. In a turn of events that can only be the work of good luck, the alligator loosened its grip, and Juan was given a chance to escape. Reflecting on that moment, Carlos said all he could think to do was try to pry open its jaws. When he managed to do that, he believes he turned, or it turned on him. Whatever the case was, the bottom line was that they were both disoriented after spending some time struggling to let go. And as soon as Juan got his chance, he let go. Once Carlos was remotely out of the alligator's grasp, he swam as fast as he could toward the nearest shore. But sadly, by then, the pain from his injuries started to hit him hard. After finally getting away from the alligator, he tried to keep swimming towards the docks. Carlos later said that it's incredibly tough to keep going when your head's been chomped on and your jaws shattered. As soon as Juan managed to stand up, he was hit with excruciating pain that made it a struggle to stay conscious. It felt like the torment of the alligator's jaws was still clamped around him. It reached a point where Carlos's body seemed like it would give up any second. But then, Juan summoned every ounce of strength he had left, staggered to the nearest house, and pleaded for help. Thankfully, the resident sprang into action and wasted no time in dialing emergency services. Before long, the ambulance arrived and swooped in to rescue Juan Carlos from the jaws of danger. The aftermath. He was swiftly rushed to the General Hospital of Tampa, where he underwent a grueling 6-hour emergency surgery. Juan's wife, Christina, recounted the extent of his injuries later. She said the bite from the alligator had impacted his skull and brain, forcing the doctors to perform a craniectomy to remove part of his temporal lobe. Due to the severity of the damage, Juan had to have his right temporal lobe removed as it had been pierced by the fractured skull bone. On top of that, his jaw was severely injured, and a facial nerve was damaged. The medical team had to remove the bones on the right side of his skull, and his jaw had to be wired shut for a period of time. After struggling through a tough 10-day recovery, Juan surprised everyone by getting discharged and sent home for further healing. But there was a catch. He had to wear a helmet to keep his noggin safe. In the end, though, a GoFundMe page was set up to assist the family with expenses. By the time Juan was done with his surgeries and was recovering, the costs had surpassed $62,600. Nowadays, Juan's doing way better. In his latest podcast chat, he's all smiles. And he talks about being able to get back in tip-top shape, physically and mentally. But he's also quick to admit his blunders. Juan confessed to a bunch of slip-ups once he had spent enough time thinking about the incident and how much it had affected him over time. He said his mistake, on the day of the attack, was not scoping out the area fully. The other mistake was flying solo without a backup crew and forgetting his essential gear. He figures if he'd remembered his glasses that day, he would have spotted the alligator early and dodged the whole mess. Of course, there are multiple what-ifs that Juan could think about, but either way, he's grateful he's been able to make a speedy recovery. To put things into perspective, even in Florida, where alligators are not an uncommon sight, alligator attacks are actually quite rare. The chances of being seriously injured in an unprovoked alligator incident is around 1 in 3.1 million. According to the Commission, there have been at least 4 fatalities from alligator attacks in the state over the past decade. According to Brandon Fisher, an alligator expert and the director of media relations at Gatorland, people should still be very cautious of such creatures in a state like Florida, where the alligator population totals approximately 1.3 million. Thanks to his military training, though, Juan stayed cool as a cucumber during the crisis, which helped him wiggle free from the alligator's clutches. He remembers how he managed to loosen its grip and make a run for it once he got his head together. Later, after recovering slightly from the incident, Carlos was able to think about what he would have changed had he known the events that were going to unfold that day. Looking back, Juan shared a curious tidbit from his hospital stint. Apparently, someone swung by when the chaos was unfolding in the hospital. That right before the attack, Juan wasn't even piloting the drone. According to this visitor, Juan accidentally hit a button on the remote, causing the drone to track him all on its own. In hindsight, Juan Carlos sees the entire ordeal as a valuable lesson. He believes every time someone takes a risk, there are consequences. He admits he had thrown caution to the wind, and it nearly cost him dearly. I've learned that lesson the hard way. Carlos also emphasizes the danger posed by reptiles like the one that attacked him, particularly during nesting and incubation periods. Interestingly, it turned out that the alligator was actually a female, who likely felt her nest was under threat. Ultimately, this fortunately non-fatal incident serves as a reminder that growth often stems from learning from our mistakes. It shows the importance of staying aware and taking responsibility for our actions. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.